Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the latest edition of the Jobber Knocker podcast. As always, it's Nestlemania. Alongside for the ride is a man who, when he's down, he grabs somebody else's shoe and hits them in the face. JC.
That was pretty good. I love the great thing about KO is ingenuity is always existing with whatever he's doing. That was certainly something that we will talk about this week.
Look, there's a lot to talk about this week. We've got a lot to get to. We've got AEW, we've got NXT, New Year's Evil, as well as everything else. We've finally got some stuff going on here for the Royal Rumble. It's starting to shape up. So I'd like to see where you'd like to start there, JC.
Many places, obviously. Shout out 20 years for the gold standard. Always in the shine, much like Mandy Rose. Both absolute studs. But I am not starting there, Nestlemania, because you know what? Some people go through life-changing things, like really hard, traumatic experiences that change them forever. And, you know, sometimes it happens when they're young and when they're impressionable and when they're really like starting to hit their stride with something, and then you hit that derailing, but then you come out of it looking even better. So I think we need to start the show with Prison Dom and his purple bandana, because man, dude, it's just over the course of this evolution of Dom, this was just so perfect. Did this segment on Miz TV with the Judgment Day and Dom telling his story. Was it super cheesy and corny? Yes, but that's why it worked, because it's this perfect blend of making Dom more of a badass, but also showing us that he's like a fake badass because he's still the little bitch boy. He's just now surrounded by a couple tough guys and mommy, and he acts all tough, and it's just good television. And he did have the one little one-liner where he took the dig at Miz about like how, you know, Maurice has your balls and stuff. It's just like there were all the cheesy in there that I like, along with like more of like continuing to make this character one of the more interesting things. And then obviously they pay off this segment. We have this Law and Tag Team Turmoil, which kind of came out of nowhere, but that's because the Usos were putting their noses in people's business. But I love the fact that the Judgment Day really was the story of Monday Night Raw. We saw Rhea get the big clean victory over Candice earlier in the night, but then we have Finn and Priest eventually becoming Priest and Dom, running the entire gauntlet, winning the #1 contendership, and setting up a matchup I never really thought about, because obviously it's heel, but man, Judgment Day versus Usos for most likely at the Rumble, that's a pretty fun short-term feud.
I was surprised too. I mean, I rolled my eyes when I heard Tag Team Turmoil because, you know,
they're doing one like tomorrow or tonight on NXT. That's why I was like, are they stealing NXT's thunder?
Yeah, they're just like trying to make it not watchable, I guess, in some way. I don't know. It's just bizarre.
I enjoyed it.
I
love tag team wrestling. Come on.
I know when it's done correctly, absolutely. But like to me, having some type of like, you know, long ass segment, like even our boy Ray texted us and this one's gonna go all night. Like,
yeah, it was like 5 matches. What do you expect?
It was. I mean, you know, I'm just saying, like, it's a lot. Like, I don't know how everybody else feels about a gauntlet. For me, it's tough to get excited about a gauntlet. I don't know. In general, singles, trios, doubles, singles, whatever, triple. It's hard for me to get excited because I feel like you don't care until the last match.
So I think the one difference, especially with this one to me, is because I know what you mean. Because a lot of times in gauntlets, we kind of expect like the SmackDown one, like we expected, like the Raquel, whatever.
Yeah.
But the one thing I liked about this gauntlet is when they put up the graphic, I was like, huh. It seems like obviously we're doing a lot of Judgment Day featuring tonight, but that's an interesting matchup. The Street Profits we've done a million times, and you obviously have like the Alpha Academy and Cedric and Shelty, and then the good idiots. And I was like, I really don't know if there's like, if I pick one to win, it's like the obvious would be like the Street Profits, but it was just, I like that I looked at it and I wasn't sure what was going to happen. Started to figure it out as it got going when the Judgment Day was rolling through, and I'm like, oh, they're telling a good story here. Didn't know if they'd end up winning at the end, and I like the little thing where Finn was too injured to compete, and they forced Dom to go in, and he didn't want to at first. Then he ends up being the one that gets the win by cheating. So I kind of think it's cool because I always thought it was fun, like when the New Day held the titles and you didn't know who would be defending them when you had the three. And I like that Judgment Day can kind of do that now too, where we have three people in a tag division. I think it just makes everyone in the stable more interesting. It keeps the stable fresh, and it creates like different types of matchups to keep when that team is wrestling fresh because of it. So I thought it was really fun. It was unexpected because I saw you tweet like this Raw didn't really push much forward. I agree pretty much everywhere else except for here, because we finally, like, we've been waiting for the Usos' next challenger because they've just kind of been like Roman's lackeys or hanging out with Sammy and Solo. Like, we haven't really had anything moving forward with them. We at least now know what their next path is. And I thought it was cool because it's a path that I didn't expect and a team that they haven't faced yet, which has gotten really rare.
I mean, I tend to agree. I love Prison Dom. I thought the Conan look, the K-Dog look from the Wolfpack looked really great.
The Michael Scott look from The Office too.
And, like you said, Rhea had a big win. They didn't job out Candice, it seemed, but it seemed pretty close.
It was a little over 3, I think.
So it was about 5, but it was 5. It's not a jobber alert per se. We can talk about that in a second. But I am curious. I did laugh really hard with, like, okay, people were like, oh my God, Finn's injured. And then of course he's clearly not injured. They just wanted Dom to get in there. And then, like, I laughed really hard when Judgment Day won, and then Finn's over there icing his abs, his ribs, and he's just laughing. He's like, oh, ow, ow, but he's still celebrating the chair. I was like, this is a whole new level of Judgment Day that I did not expect to enjoy, because like, here's the thing, like, for the longest time it's felt like Rhea's a centerpiece, Dom's very much a centerpiece, and it felt like even though Balor's a big deal, him and Priest have been kind of in the background of the Judgment Day a lot of the times. Like, they come in, they hit their stride, they do have great matches, but they're not the focal point of stuff. They're not moving things forward. So when I saw them, I'm like, oh, that'd be an interesting tag team. But again, Dom and Priest, to me, makes more chronological sense. And this is why I think there's more miles on this. You can say there's, and I agree, the 3 iterations, the free bird rule is great for Judgment Day. But if you're going to keep pushing the Prison Dom thing, having a giant heavy behind him keeps that narrative fresh and fun, and being like, oh yeah, I can fuck you up, by the way, there's Priest. Like, that stuff works a lot better. Obviously, we're trying to bide time to get to WrestleMania for, I assume, Ray and Dom.
Yeah, I was thinking about that because I was going over it last night. I'm like, they could do that still. And I think the free bird rule helps it. But I'm like, I also feel like Edge has to come back with these guys at some point. And are they doing him and Finn one-on-one in like a spectacular match at WrestleMania? Because that might be something that Edge wants, because we know he kind of gets to pick. And him and Finn in like a Hell in a Cell or something like that it'd be probably an awesome match and would get a lot of us excited. But that was what I thought was cool about the segment too, because it made me like kind of rethink a lot of things. But I do think we're still on for Dom and Ray. But what I also loved about the segment, and you kind of hit on it there, is that like Finn had his shine and with like being the sniveling shit thing, but I thought this was the best Priest has looked in a long time, because he was the Iron Man here. He went for almost an hour. He wrestled in all these matches. He took a ton of the bumps. He dished out a lot of the punishment. Like, it kind of reminded us, like, this guy really was a workhorse for this company. And like, yes, he's been overshadowed in this faction, but as the Judgment Day continues to rise, as they like to say, pun intended, like, he's a guy that, like, when he has to, he can step to the forefront and do what needs to be done. But I do agree. I think Priest and Dom is my favorite version of the tag teams, because I just love Finn and singles so much, but I just like that they can mix and match. So I think this is going to be really fun moving forward.
One final point I want to make, because you had to have been tickled pink like I was at the end of Raw with the copyright. It's like, here's the Usos holding up, then all of a sudden it's just Martinez going, and they fade out. And I'm like, what?
He had his Braun moment, baby.
Yeah, it's just like, look at him flexing. Look at him go. It just made me laugh so hard, because I was like, what a way to end Monday Night Raw, because most of it was just complete utter garbage, in my opinion. But the Judgment Days, they've been saving a lot of segments. They really have. So I'm excited. You want to talk about anything else that's exciting to you?
Yes, I do. I actually want to go to SmackDown Nestlemania because hashtag Jobberknocker hopes come true. It finally happened. Your boy, Top Dollar and Hit Row are finally heels Nestlemania. We saw this building. They've been taking a lot of shit for a million of different reasons, but we've been saying the whole time, it's like, these guys can't move forward till they turn heel. They're natural heels. They just like everything killed their momentum. They're just everything they do is naturally heel. They look like heels. They act like heels. People are gonna hate them for a litany of reasons. And you know what? Top Dollar's been putting out these promos on Twitter too. I don't know if you've watched some of them. He put out another one yesterday on Monday. They're pretty damn good. Like this guy clearly is just like we talk about all the time. It's a lot harder to be a babyface. Some people aren't cut to be baby faces. I think all these people qualify, but as heels, man, it works. And the aggression works because that's more their style. Like obviously Rap can come off very aggressive, so it works even better as a heel. I thought this was great. I love that it was against Ricochet because it made sense. It was a spot in the Royal Rumble. Frustration built over. Ricochet was the guy I got mad at in the back because he's a smiley little whatever, but it was good. I mean, then of course my boy Braun runs out, roar! So the Braun Ricochet tag team thing is still a thing, which is still hilarious because these two started their own feud on Twitter when Braun insulted all the little boys, saying that big boy matches are better because him and Omos. And hey, you know what? I'm all for it, but I enjoyed this. I thought this was the best part of SmackDown. It was an enjoyable segment. It made sense. Top Dollar wasn't a jobber alert, but like you always say, it doesn't matter sometimes because they immediately got their shit back when they turned heel. It's the best Hit Row has ever looked without Swerve, and it's the best Hit Row's ever looked in the main roster, period. So it's at least something now with them where now that they're in kind of their niche, let's see what they can do with it.
And I don't want to say go the Acclaimed route because that would be kind of unfair.
Yeah.
But I think having them disrespect people a certain way would really benefit them. Like I think B-Fab needs to talk more. I think Top Dollar needs to throw in his 2 cents and then have, Ashanti come in and do whatever that he does. Because you can tell out of the athleticism.
You don't want the full dollar. You only want a few cents.
I want a couple cents. I don't want a full dollar. I don't know what the conversion rate on is on a Top Dollar. Can I have a middle quarter? But it's deciding the fact is just, I'm watching this going, okay, now we have legs. Now I'm rejuvenated as a fan. Like, okay, I buy into that. I get that. And I'm excited. But I'm just curious to see how far we can go with this because they could be potentially a great tag team or a stable, depending on whatever they do. But they need something more. Like, I like the idea that they came out on a tour bus, like in the backstage stuff. Like, I thought that was cool. Having them do certain things that are very much in the rap community, I think translating that into the wrestling would be very cool. And I think they need to push into that because that's the only thing that's going to separate them from being kind of into something way better that they can be.
Just don't try Rick Ross because you saw AEW try that.
Woo! You're a big boy. You're a big boy. I'm not going to say what he said, but Jesus
I was going to say
Christ.
those were the exact words that he said. Poor Keith Lee. He's always getting called big boys by people.
That's a big fucking boy.
Oh,
that might be my favorite WrestleMania. Favorite Royal Rumble of all time. Brock
I
Lesnar
think we talked about that's my favorite as well. I thought it was.
I mean,
amazing.
92 will always have a spot in my heart. I think it's wonderful from Ric Flair's point of view and all the craziness that went on. But that before the pandemic Royal Rumble might be one of the best booked things I've seen in a very long time.
It had everything you could ask for in that Rumble. Like these stories, everything made sense. They had something for everyone. It was cool.
Yeah. Anything else? Or do you want to get heaty?
I will say this. I did really enjoy the opening to Raw. Mainly, I mean, it's obviously people that I enjoy, obviously in KO and Corbin, but it's just like once we talked about it with the shoe, we hinted at earlier with KO. It's just like how he understands things and how he understands making things that people will remember. He called back to that meme that he had during the Vince era where his face was in the turnbuckle. He did it again here. And honestly, it is the perfect thing because you can like look at it however you want, but what he's doing is he's telling you that JBL and Corbin are the most annoying fucking things in the world to cause him to react like that, thus putting them over even more as heels. So that's why I love it. There's something about JBL's music whenever it hits, I get a smile on my face because I know something obnoxious and annoying is going to happen. And I just like eat it up. It's crazy because growing up, when I heard JBL's music, I used to get so mad because I hate him so much. And he was so mean to Cena and all my favorites. And he was such a dick. And I hate him. And now I hear it and I'm just like, I get like giddy. And then I hear Corbin's music and I get mad because that music sucks. But I mean, Corbin and KO, I like when they wrestle. I think they have good chemistry too. But yeah, I thought this was a good way to open the show. But it was obviously just kind of a filler week for KO because obviously Sammy and Roman weren't there. So the Bloodline came out, did all their Bloodline things, blah, blah, blah. But I thought it was a fun way to kind of like pivot KO into doing something that wasn't a complete waste of time.
And it wasn't necessarily Bloodline related. There were a couple, you know what I mean? Like it was different, and it was what it was. He did scrap with them for a couple seconds or whatever. But again, Bloodline gets tossed out. Solo has a match later on. It is weird to me that they are continuously letting the Usos and Solo back on Raw, but you know, it is.
Well, they're letting them because they just show up and then Pierce
I know.
just books them in matches to punish them.
Yeah. Something that I didn't think I was going to enjoy, but I absolutely did, was the Usos in the main event of SmackDown against the Banger Brothers. Pause for the bus. Sheamus is amazing, by the way, saying he found it on a bus and all that other stuff. Watching the popcorn eating, and just the continuation of Sammy just eating popcorn by himself, and then everybody eating popcorn, and then like freaking out and everything. Like he's just so much better on certain levels than everybody else. I like the thread of the needle of like, hey, you're not allowed in, then you're allowed in. Get me Sami Zayn. I love you, Shmooly, but I don't know if anybody else does that kind of stuff. Like that's great storytelling because it's, we'll look at this overall arching Bloodline thing with giant bullet points, right? But then there's times where you watch SmackDown and there's these little mini bullet points inside that bigger bullet point where you're like, not only are we telling a story here, but each individual SmackDown sometimes has that story, and I think that's important because Sami Zayn is creating so many tentacles here for people to jump off of, which is incredible. Incredible. I mean, we know Roman Reigns is on another level. We get that. I mean, that we expect that. If you're the top guy, you got to deliver, and he does. But watching him flip out on Sami Zayn, it's that, is it going to happen? And then you go, oh shit, he didn't do it. Thank God. We were all Paul Heyman for a moment when he started yelling at Sami Zayn. We thought, oh my God, this is it. But it didn't feel like the right moment, which was good. I was very excited to see what happens going forward with this entire Bloodline thing. But the tag match with the Banger Brothers was really great too. Had a lot of falsies and stuff. But the Bloodline wins because the Bloodline can't lose till WrestleMania. So we're just kind of here in La La Land with the Usos and Roman Reigns, I think.
Yeah, this is obviously kind of the makeup from because Drew got injured or whatever, or Sheamus got whoever it was. I don't even remember. I
think he had a busted eardrum.
Yeah, so this was kind of the makeup, but I thought it worked. But I think the thing that really stood out to me was something you pointed out. It was the Sammy Roman stuff backstage because it was the little things about this segment that continue to further like the overarching story where Roman apologizing, saying his temper got the best of him. He never apologized to Jey Uso during that run and stuff like that. So I think it's these little things, like even though everyone's all aboard the Sammy train, I think it's just like these little things that they plant along the way of like, whether it's special treatment or not special treatment, or just like it's little breadcrumbs they're leaving for you to pick up and decide what to do with that, maybe they can touch on later. Because I think that's something that we've seen in the Triple H era is that these little things that you think might not matter, they do pay off, even if it takes a little while. There was something else on Raw this week. I'm blanking on it currently, but that I remember I saw and I was like, oh my God, that's a callback to like a little while ago and, stuff. And so as we talk, it'll come up. But I think there's a lot of those things here. And obviously this being like their main story in WWE, the Bloodline stuff is that I'm looking for all these little check marks along the way. And I do think it's shine that we're getting Reigns and Owens at the Rumble, because I think that's the perfect type of Rumble match. We're always looking for just a good wrestling match. We've seen these guys have absolute bangers in the past, and it's usually, we know KO's not going to win, but we also know that like something's going to happen from this match, like big time in this story, because we are entering WrestleMania season. So we're looking for these big checkmark events to help set up that WrestleMania card. And we know something's going to happen here with Sammy, KO, and Reigns. So I think it's still an exciting time for the Bloodline. They're a little overexposed, like you said, with jumping to both shows, but I don't think it's like bad overexposed. It's more of like there's enough members where it works, but that is just one thing they do have to be a little careful of, is just not give us too much every week.
Okay, moving on. Is there anything else that you want that's shine worthy?
So it's weird. We can transition off this if you want, because I didn't think it was like, I mean, it's one of those things we're always reminded of. It's just like that crowds love Charlotte, even when she's like like Charlotte, just one of those things. Like she's just good. And that segment, like it probably like would have felt like a throwaway segment, a random match with Sony. It always feels like Sony is the one like, oh, random challenge for a championship and lose, like whatever. But it's just like the crowd was eating up everything Charlotte did. And it's just like, I think that time off really gave people more of an appreciation of how freaking good she is. Because, I mean, when you go through the Ronda Rousey championship era and you're just like, oh, and then we have a real champion like Charlotte step through the door and we're like, okay, great. So obviously we know it's going to turn like it always does because Charlotte's much better as a heel. I prefer as a heel, but it was just one of those things I'm watching. I'm like, this is a segment I normally wouldn't give a fuck about, but like, just like sometimes when the crowd's into something and they're telling you like this is like something we're enjoying, it makes you enjoy it more. So I think that shined just by default this week.
I mean, Whoop the Trick would made me laugh really freaking hard.
The title of the podcast. Yeah.
And they also they went with it. They didn't ignore it. They didn't try to beat it down in volume. They weren't, oh, you think I'm a trick? I'll show you, ring the fucking bell. And then it went off and it was great. That's the stuff that when you participate with a crowd like that and you give it back to them, now they're invested. They got to watch your stuff. So I think Sonya did a great job. I think that Charlotte did a great job going forward with it. And again, it's a breath of fresh air still because Charlotte's brand new in terms of being champion this time around. But the other thing I'm looking at is they're going to look at WrestleMania and they're going to look at Ronda Rousey and they're going to go, she needs to be in a marquee matchup. But I tend to think that Ronda Rousey is probably just happy to be there, collect a paycheck, and do whatever she wants.
Yeah, I think she does want to work with younger talent, like she said that.
Because I think the underlying thing here is the problem we're going to have is that they need Ronda and Shayna to be in a tag match for the women, or be the women's champions by then, or win the women's championship by then. I don't think Damage Control and Ronda and Shayna are exciting to me. So having Ronda and Shayna already be champions against somebody maybe that's returning. God forbid
it's going to be a fatal four-way.
Bella's out or something, or like fucking Natty and Beth or whatever. Like,
well, I think it's Raquel. It's Raquel, but the problem is all her tag team parts keep getting hurt. Like Raquel and Leah had the championships, but just it's like, can we find a dominant partner for Raquel that works in a Shayna Ronda feud? I'm kind of beginning to think, because I think especially now that Triple H is in charge, we're going to see more women's matches and generals, and maybe more women's singles matches beyond just the two titles. So if you're not doing Ronda Becky, if that's really not a thing, like I know the rumor's been out there about a Ronda Ripley or whatever, if she doesn't win the Rumble or something, that would, if they could build that story, that could be a singles match I'd be interested in, whether it was for a title or not. That's the direction they could go. But I do tend to agree with you. I think the Ronda Shayna tag team run, like it feels like the right time now, because Damage Control is doing nothing with those things. So if like people can shit on Ronda all they want, but like she's the type of person, like taking the tag titles, being a big name, like it just gives it more legs. And they don't really have anyone else to do that. We saw like Sasha and Naomi had great momentum there with the run because they're two names that people really liked, and they kind of brought extra shine to those titles. And, Dakota Kai and Io Sky are great, but they have no one to feud with, first off, which is the biggest issue. But the second issue is it's just like, these titles have been so like up and down, mostly down. I think this is a thing where you can use Ronda's star power to really empower these titles and like maybe actually build a division. Because we get some of these tag teams where I'm like, oh, that's a cool tag team, but then they just kind of like disappear and they when like their momentum. Like Tegan and Liv, like you convinced me that's a fun tag team if you put some time behind it. But instead it was like, oh, they're friends, title shot, done with it. You know what I mean? So, and obviously right now we're in the Rumble season, so everyone's focused on that. But I do think it is a way to kind of restore your women's tag team division a little bit. Because look at NXT does a great job with the women's tag team titles for the most part. Like there's always contenders for it, and there's a couple teams that like feel like teams, and it's just there's ways to build it. And I think Ronda and Shayna would be like the perfect team to kind of bring that balance and kind of bring that WrestleMania shine to something like that. So I do agree. I don't know if that's actually what they're going to do though.
I tend to think you're right, but the other thing that crossed my mind while you were talking was, I know it's probably not going to happen because she's the front runner at this point to win the Royal Rumble, but I would love to see Shayna Baszler, Ronda Rousey versus Raquel and, drumroll please, Rhea Ripley, because they're best friends too. And I think that would be a physical match. That's where you get into the shit where it can get interesting. You know what I mean?
I just don't know how you make them TV friends right now, because like Rhea and Raquel's characters are like polar opposites.
Right. They're North and South Pole at this point, but it's hard. But I think that eventually, because they're friends, you have to at least acknowledge that they could, in theory, do something very cool together.
Yeah. And I think Raquel's more of a natural heel, but I think like she's just been received well as a babyface on like the main roster. So I think they just run with that for now. But yeah, no, it is interesting, but I do want to ask you this here, because I think maybe every week leading up, until we make predictions, I think we should say, if you had to pick the 2 Rumble winners right now, who would they be?
For the women, it's Ripley. I don't think I'm going to change my pick, especially since they had the Candace backstage thing about everybody focusing on the Royal Rumble, and then she just kind of crept out as she said something about the Royal Rumble. I think the focus is there. I think Ripley versus Belair seems to be what I would think at this point would be going on at WrestleMania. I don't know about the other side of that coin on SmackDown. For the men, I mean, Cody's got those packages, so you think that Cody's the guy. Everybody yelled at me when I said Brett Luger finished 93 with the Rock and Cody, but you could do Cody and Seth if that makes our boy Dom more excited about what I said.
I feel like it's not Seth though. If they're gonna do that, it's Cody and Drew.
I look at it like if they're gonna do 2 nights or they're gonna do 2 championships, why not do the everybody lose? Like here's the other thing that I've thought about too, right? Everybody thinks that the Rock is gonna be in the Royal Rumble. I don't necessarily
believe
need
to be.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah. Here's going to be the first tell, right? Well, the first tell was that on YouTube, they re-released The Rock's return from 2011. So, something's happening.
It's
right?
in LA. Like it makes sense.
It makes sense. It makes sense. It's injected into his veins. He's just going to do it. I fully believe in some way, shape or form, he's doing something. But what I would say is the other tell is going to be when we're watching the Royal Rumble, if the men's and women's Royal Rumble, like one of them doesn't close and it's Roman and KO, then it's going to be just like Money in the Bank with Cena. It's going to be him raising that championship and then and the place will fucking erupt.
I don't think they need to do that now, though. I think they could do that at Elimination Chamber or on a SmackDown or you know what I mean?
But just
whatever the middle pay-per-view
is. Here's something you need to also keep in mind, something that you may not have thought about. The Rock is actually not well received in Canada. They hate him in Canada.
That's why I don't think you need to. You don't even need to do it.
He's going to be an elimination chamber.
Yeah, I don't need. I honestly if you want to do a Rock, obviously they're going to want the poster, but it's hard because Roman's going to be defending that title in Canada. We assume against Sami Zayn. That's what we're all assuming at this point. So it's just you can obviously have the Rumble winner because Cody can challenge whoever. If Cody wins the Rumble, he can challenge whoever he wants at WrestleMania. It doesn't matter if it's Roman or whatever. Even though we know it's going to be Roman, you don't have to make that match completely meaningless elimination chamber because he's the Rumble winner. So it's but it's also hard because if they were going to do a Roman Rock main event, how do you not advertise that before whenever that pay-per-view is? Was it February pay-per-view? So I guess you still have more time, but we know how they are, how early they like to get those, which granted this year, it hasn't mattered with ticket sales. Those things are flying off the shelves anyways, which is a far cry from what was happening last year. So yeah, it's definitely a tough call. I agree with you on the men's. I think it's Cody. I think it makes sense. And I think the packages have been fun because it's given us that little bit of behind the scenes, because it's so hard nowadays to just have the complete surprise where it just comes out of nowhere. That doesn't exist anymore with the internet. Because even that Edge one, we all had a feeling it was going to happen, but then it happens and it was still fucking cool as hell. So I think them just preparing us for Cody again is smart because, people are excited for that run. The women's one, though, I think you hit on it. It's a lot harder to think about because Ripley seems to be a woman that has momentum for it, but it's just I still feel like Charlotte Bianca is a match that they'd want to do. It's just they're both the champions right now, so it's how do you do that? Unless if it's Rousey wins it back at the Rumble, Charlotte enters the Rumble and wins it. That's kind of the way I kind of view now is Charlotte winning the Rumble to challenge Bianca, but it's just because it's if not, it's if it's not Ripley, it has to be Charlotte or Becky or someone you know what I mean? I can't imagine anyone else.
I don't want Charlotte or Becky winning the Royal Rumble because I feel like it's redundant at this point. It feels and even Ronda, it's redundant. You have so many top people. That's fine. Belair would have been nice, but she won the Royal Rumble too. So I feel like Rhea Ripley's the next person in that logical pecking order that makes sense to win. And she's been doing great stuff.
Yeah, but as we've always seen, the Rumble isn't necessarily because I feel like we've gotten to this day before. It's not always necessarily setting up the next big star. If you look at a lot of the Rumbles, it's someone who already was established. It's the rare cases where you get the Del Rios or the Sheamuses. So that's why it's I think Rhea makes a lot of sense. And I agree. I think she's definitely one of the heavy favorites, if not the favorites. But I just have a feeling we're getting some swerves coming in the women's divisions across both of them. So I think we might get a surprise, whether it's Charlotte or Becky or Bianca or someone winning the actual Rumble.
I also feel like they're setting up this random Becky versus Damage Control thing Like it's going to be a 6-woman tag.
We already had the Becky Bailey match. It's like, why is this still going? I just don't care.
I mean, I wouldn't mind Bailey winning, I guess, if she broke away from Damage Control, but
she won't. That's the thing.
She
If
won't.
she wins, it'll be with Damage Control. But it's like, I don't know.
It's a wet
she's already
start.
faced Bianca 1,000 times, and
Right.
I mean Bailey and Charlotte they haven't done in a while, but I don't know. I don't know.
You got to do much more bang for your buck, I guess, is the way you're going to look at Royal Rumble. But again, you're excited because you're starting to anticipate things and ask questions.
Rumble's the best. It's the best.
That gets you more rejuvenated back into everything. Something else? Are we still in the shine? I can't even remember.
Well, I said we can transition to the Heat, and then we never did.
Okay, get him off my TV. Get him off my TV. Get him off my TV. There's a lot I want to talk about, but I'm just going to try to piss through a bunch of random stuff. Really, this is where I'm kind of confused, right? Like we've got the captain or Mr. or Uncle Howdy thing. Bliss cuts a promo, which was actually pretty good. And then, of course, Uncle Howdy's just sitting there in the smoke going, ha, 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 you think you're in control. You think you're in control. Fine. Then LA Knight looks very confident. I don't know what a lights out, I don't know what a lights out match. Yeah, I don't know what a lights out match is, but it's just like, I get it. You want to be fucking a superstar. I get it. It's just, I'm excited to see what happens, but this Uncle Howdy thing is throwing me for a loop sometimes because I was thinking about it yesterday. It's like Uncle Howdy has to be the personification of evil, right? It like, if you interact with him or you intertwine with him or you cross him in some way, you end up in like the worst case scenario for yourself. But I feel like Bray coming back, not Bray-ish, and Alexa coming out of therapy makes it seem like they've escaped in some form. So Uncle Howdy, I think going forward, I don't want to see the unmasking. I don't want it to be Bo Dallas. I want it to be just like an entity into itself. I don't want to see it wrestling, but I do want to see somebody get tangled up with him by accident somehow and then have a seismic change, because I think that's important in distinction going forward. What happens to you when you cross Uncle Howdy? I think that's where we need to head, because that's the only way people are going to get invested in it. I think we're culminating to Royal Rumble. We're culminating to WrestleMania. I don't know what Bray Wyatt can do at WrestleMania. I really don't. Yeah,
this is a really tough one for me too, because like the Uncle Howdy thing is weird for me. I like you, like I don't want it to be an unmasking. Like I don't want him to be a person, because I feel like this is all supposed to be, feels like it should be about Bray, but like with the Uncle Howdy thing, it's not. I want him to be, like you said, more of an entity. But I just like the segment on Raw was just completely puzzling, because he comes out to interrupt Bliss and then they go to commercial and it's just done.
Yeah,
I hate that. It's just like, I get like they love the cliffhangers, but it's just like, what the fuck?
And I don't even think they addressed it for the rest of the
night. No, they didn't. I think
it's almost like Uncle Howdy. When like the commentators really don't discuss Uncle Howdy very much. It seems like it's
supposed to be one of those things like where maybe like they don't like see it. It's more of like we're supposed to envision it as like Uncle Howdy is in Bray and Alexa's mind, and only us as like viewers see it. It's I don't know. That's weird.
Tough, because that's a hard sell. That's a really hard sell for people to believe that. You know what I mean? I think that's. Moving on to something that's hard to believe is Moss and Emma versus Cross and Scarlett. Obviously, we love Scarlett for obvious reasons, but Cross once again retreating back into nobody gives a shit territory. He might be the new human sleeping bag for me. I mean, he is rough. Like, here's the thing. It's I've said this before, but it really is like somebody took the Miz, put him in the Captain America chamber, made him like fucking jacked as shit, gave him tats, and then was like, okay, go out there and look like a menace. But you're not. You look safe in your bubble wrap. It's like they took the worst parts of Bobby Roode and the Miz and they just put them together. And that's Cross, baby. Sorry. It's just, it's so, here's the thing. I want to be invested in Cross. You can see it on a poster. The guy, you can visit the girl, the guy that it looks right. It just feels right, but something is off, just off. And they haven't fixed it. It's like, don't worry about it, kid. It's my job to get you over. Like it doesn't make any fucking sense to me. Cause in theory, fallen prey, right? But it's like I forgot he was going to go after Mysterio. Then he pulled the card out and I'm like, oh yeah, that's still a thing. But wait a minute. Dom just got in the prison and it's just, unless there's some type of something we're going to get with Cross and Ray going forward maybe after Royal Rumble, but it's tough. It is really tough.
I think the thing with Cross and like, yeah, you said like he looks good on a poster, then you see him in like person, and it's like you're almost thinking like, I wish he was a little bit taller. I wish he was more of a baller. I wish he had a girl look good. Well, he does have that.
Yeah.
So
wish
he
it was
definitely
a
can
little-
call her. But maybe he had a rabbit in a hat with a bat and 6'4"
Did you just
Impala.
Google that the lyrics while I was talking? Because I've
No.
seen your eyes retreat over.
I had to Google the last two lines because
okay.
I know the beginning, but I never know the end because I
Yeah.
always forget about the rabbit in the hat and the
Rabbit
whatever.
in a hat.
But when you were saying that, and like that song popped in my head
Yeah.
because I was like, yeah, I do wish he was a little bit taller. Like if he just like was 3 or 4 inches taller, I think the Menacing thing would really work because he does. He looks. You put him on a poster, it's like, oh my god, this guy looks massive. But then you see him against like other dudes who are also massive, and you're just kind of like, he's not that massive.
No.
anymore. He's kind of normal. He just like because he like the thing with Cross is like he looks so good, but
Yeah.
like you said, and man, the fucking bell rings night, like literally night. Just it's.
No, here's the thing. I appreciate we talk about this all the time. I appreciate a wrestler who has a moveset that doesn't look like everybody else's. I do. Sheamus is the best moveset, bar none.
Oh yeah.
He is the best moveset guy.
Crosses isn't really like that, and
Here's
like,
the- no,
you can call
that-
it unique, but it's probably like if you Googled most boring moveset in the entire planet, it'd just be a picture of Karrion Kross's moveset.
Right. It's like somebody who wants to pretend to be tough, but isn't. That's every time he comes out, I'm thinking to myself, are you already neutered? Like, what exactly is going on here? I don't understand.
He better not be neutered when he has that walking next to him all
No,
day.
I
That'd be
know.
such
I
a
know.
waste of
He's not a eunuch. I'm just saying, I mean, Jesus Christ, I'm sure in the bedroom he's perfectly fine. But I'm just saying, when it's wrestling, it's just bizarre. Like the straight jacket to me, again, we've already talked. Submission finishes are just tough to come by, especially if you're a babyface or a heel. I don't
But
get
they
excited
can be
about it.
done right if they're set
Right.
up for them. The problem
But
is like there's nothing in his moveset that sets it up and makes it interesting.
And again, here's the thing. He hasn't done anything, at least for me to think. I mean, somebody can remind me. I'm sure TJ and Ray will yell at me when I say this.
He was touched on in NXT, but none of his stuff was that great. Like his Keith Lee stuff was probably the best stuff.
Right.
And his best match was probably the one they got hurt in.
The thing that bothers me about Cross is there's no pun intended anywhere here. I don't feel like he's crossed the line with anybody. Like I don't feel like he's like when I watch MJF, he is irredeemable. But when I look at Cross, I'm like, this guy is playing it safe. He hasn't committed any wrestling felonies. He hasn't hurt anybody really to the point where I'm like, okay, you're just an impressive figure. And it's hard because
he needs to kill Rey Mysterio.
Sure.
Like he needs to like
body bag.
It's just like it's because that one was set up well because it was kind of like I respect you, but it's time for you to die. It's like the little legend killery thing, which is what we obviously love so much, but it's just like they've kind of put that on pause, probably because Ray probably has time off, well deserved, obviously, spending time with his family, getting sending his son to jail and all that shit. But it's just going back to this Madcap and Emma thing. Like, yeah, whatever. It was cool to see Emma and Scarlett in the ring, but it was just like we've seen Cross wrestle Madcap about 7 times, and the same thing happens every time. It's like, what are we doing?
He already fell and he prayed and he's back and he's falling and he's praying and it's just
clearly like you don't make them fall that hard if they can just get back up again. You're never gonna keep them down. So
wow, Chumbawamba. Wow. Next thing you're gonna go, oh, Danny boy for our boy overseas. This is what it is. Moving on to something that I did not thought we were gonna talk that long about. Fucking what's his name, but that's okay. Moving on to Raw. I just thought, like I said, Raw was not necessarily the best thing in the world for me.
Quick hits.
I was confused with the idea of like, here's Bronson Reed package, and then he's there. And then like watching somebody interview him, and it's just like he's this massive, like horizontal guy, but vertically, he's just like a normal person. So it's
Would you say you wish that he's a little bit taller?
Yeah, wish he was taller. Exactly. He can't pull a rabbit out of his hat.
No.
But I was sitting there and just like, okay. And then like the Miz, to me, the Miz saved it, but also I felt like the Miz kind of fucked it up in a way where he's talking like, okay, like we're not friends, just pay me, and walked away. And then he was like, classic Bronson. All I could have thought of was just like, I understand what he's trying to do, but what I would have said was, oh, okay, like I'll fucking pay you. Here's a fucking stack of money. Now go over there and get me a fucking Danish, like
$1 million Miz. Come on.
Seriously. That's what the Miz does great. He's pretty much bulletproof at this point, but that pairing needs to be different. That absolutely needs to be different. I'm not necessarily in love with the idea of it. So
I think what sucks with the Miz stuff is that like him and Ciampa was starting to get really good before the injury, like really good, like really interesting. The matching outfits, like it just like it was getting really good, and then obviously it ended because of the circumstances. And they did the Loomis storyline, which we were confused about at first, but it turned out to be really good. But now it's like, okay, who's the next new guy that we can try to have to like rub some of the Miz stuff onto him? And it's just like, this one's probably going to take a little more finessing from Triple H and company to make me buy in.
Finesse is a hard word. I don't know if they're going to do that. Michin had a match with Bailey. We talked about sort of kind of nobody cares. It seems like anything Michin, anything Bailey is just tough. It's fucking tough.
It's not interesting.
It's really, really bad. We didn't talk about Theory in the knee promo. I'll be ready for the Rumble, the crowd chanting. That's the other thing too. I forget where they were last night, but they were not.
They're in Alabama, I believe.
They were not on Monday.
JBL was making a lot of Alabama jokes.
They were not into like the fact that they piped in stuff for the entrances. I was just thinking to myself, well, that's just bizarre. But
they got into like random things, but it wasn't consistent.
People who were not gonna get reactions got piped in reactions, and I was just thinking to myself, like, one of these things is not like the other.
I will say that they got a nice pop when Shelton tagged in the main event.
Yeah, and then see that was real though.
20 years, baby, gold standard of wrestling.
But it's hard because like they're trying hard with that Michin name, and I'm just like,
it's not
the
name. I've never. I mean, if you've listened to this, like Mia Yim has never been someone that like I don't think she's that great in the ring or whatever. She's not super interesting to me. I think she's definitely has a unique look, and enough people like her that she's definitely deserving of being on this roster. But it's just one of those people like when she's put in spots, I don't think it's something I'm ever going to get excited about. It's just what it is.
I could talk about more things, but I think it's time to just cleanse that palate. Let's get hopeful.
Glorious. Well, you're my only hope, Nestle.
Would you like to go
first? You want me to go first?
I think you're prepared more than I am.
I am. Wow. Typical Nestle. New year, same Nestle. Never prepared in the hope. I actually am prepared today.
All right, blow my mind and my socks off. Let's go.
Yeah, mine is for Wednesday on Dynamite. It is match 7 and the best of 7 between Death Triangle and the Elite. Finally, this shit is ending. It's a muerte match, or whatever the hell they call it, which means it's probably gonna be really fun. I got so much fatigue with these guys, but my hope is that Death Triangle wins the best of 7, but not for the reasons that you think. I finally did get around to the Omega Ospreay match after we recorded last week, and that match we probably will talk about later in the year. I don't know if you've seen it yet. It's a really fucking good match. We'll probably have the same criticisms because it was long. It felt like a Johnny Gargano matches, like we like to call them, where I could have eliminated a lot of the beginning. It would have been fine, but it was a really cool story. There was physicality. Ospreay, as much as I love him, like as doing babyface work, he needs some work, so to speak. But I still think he's amazing and his future is bright, and I think he'll get there. And he's mostly been, I feel like, a heel in most of his career. So, those little criticisms by it, I thought the match overall was incredible. Definitely a match of the year contender early on, already here in January. But what that match reminded me of is like, what the fuck is AEW doing? Why is Kenny Omega not wrestling singles matches, especially when there's still, it was like the CM Punk thing. There's a laundry list of dream matches for Kenny Omega that we haven't seen yet. And instead we get fucking 7 straight matches against the same teams in a fucking 6-man tag. Also the Young Bucks, much better as a tag team than a 6-man too. So that's my main reason for having Death Triangle win, is just like, you can give the Elite these titles at some point, but even if they win them, I want Kenny Omega to return to that singles division, man, because I'm looking at and think about like some of the matchups we could have over the year with like Omega and a lot of the single stars on the roster, people that maybe like weren't in this position when Omega was doing his title run, whether it's a Ricky Starks or something like that. Like there could be some really fun feuds here, and Kenny is just, he is so good. I like to shit in him. I'm a harsh critic on him just because I expect the world from him. So when I don't get it, I criticize him. But that just tells you how good he is. But man, watching that match, I'm like, this guy is a fucking artist in that ring in a singles match. And like the canvas on the blank slate you give him and how he makes these beautiful works of art. So that's my main hope, is that I hope Death Triangle wins just so we can get Kenny Omega back in the singles division, get the Young Bucks back in the tag division, because I want some Kenny Omega single matches, baby. So go Death Triangle on Wednesday.
Go Death Triangle, you say?
Hashtag JC knows. Hashtag JC hopes come true.
And when you're wrong on Wednesday and they lose, what are you going to do?
Oh, no, the Elite 100% are going to win.
Okay,
but here's my thing. Those titles are fucking bogus bullshit anyway, so have them just carry them around and never defend them, and have Kenny Omega wrestle singles matches.
After 7
and the Young Bucks
just never defend them? Jesus Christ.
They defend them like once every 2 months. But for the main part, my main hope here is Kenny Omega singles wrestler. Bang the table for that all day.
Please don't bang the table. You know better. You work in production.
Bang the bus, bitch.
Bangers bus, not the bang bus.
Oh, yeah.
Or the casting couch. My comeback, sorry, my hope, excuse me. My hope is I was actually excited for this when I saw it. Lacey Evans package this week where she was a weapon. Like they actually made her look like a weapon. If they had negated all the terrible Major Pain stuff they had done a couple weeks ago with her running through the muck with her fucking makeup on and old shit, they had just started with this fucking thing, I would have been way more on the bandwagon for her. I think this was the first time I watched it and I went, why wasn't this the fucking thing the whole time? I think that's exactly what I said. Because then it was like, and your new weapon, your new objective is the Cobra Clutch. And I went, let's fucking go. Now the next step is we need Sarge. We need Sergeant Slaughter to come back.
Come on, baby.
Here's the thing. Sergeant Slaughter, obviously universally loved. It's going to be hard to put somebody that's universally loved with Lacey Evans. I think Lacey Evans is not a good baby face. She's just not.
That's why she needs Sergeant Slaughter to be one.
But Sergeant Slaughter can definitely help her. But the thing is she can't fucking talk. Like she can, but don't. You know what I mean? Like the only thing I could think of was, when he was an Iraqi sympathizer at WrestleMania 7 and he was a big fucking deal heel, you could maybe do something like that. But I don't see her turning on the Marine Corps background. So my thought was you get the Cobra Clutch in there. You get Sergeant Slaughter, you make her the best you can with that entire thing. But going forward, what I would love to see is having her, she's not going to win a championship, right? But she's definitely somebody that you can put in a tag team. And having her, they can pluck somebody out of, obscurity if they want. But her with Sergeant Slaughter, and they could try to, there's got to be somebody else with a Marine Corps background that's screaming at me right now. But like,
Ashante the Adonis.
No, a woman. I'm saying a woman's tag team. No,
I'm just giving you veterans off the top of my head.
I'm just saying, I think that's the way to go because Lacey Evans by herself is Lacey Evans. But having Sergeant Slaughter with Lacey Evans is great. Having another one would be even better because I think that's where Lacey Evans' ceilings can be right now because it's so cluttered at the top for that championship. Unless they have a middle card kind of championship that they unveil, Lacey Evans needs a tag partner. Lacey Evans needs somebody interesting that can take the heat off of her. And I don't know if enough Sergeant Slaughter can, but that's where my head's at. Sergeant Slaughter is a manager, get her a tag team partner, and maybe we can get excited about something.
The only time I was ever excited for Lacey in a tag team was when they teased her and Charlotte because like that look worked. Like with the Tea Party and shit, like that would have worked, but that obviously isn't gonna. I don't know. Lacey in the tag division doesn't really do much for me. I think she is. Well,
there's something going on in the tag
division. I do think she's a future women's champion, just obviously not anytime soon because we got to get back to the level that she was at before she got injured. Like when she was feuding with Becky Lynch and that thing with the Corbin team and then Corbin at the end of it, like that was like peak Lacey. Like she was ready for a championship at that point, but obviously. That was a long time ago, and a lot of things have happened since then, and a lot of more people have come in since then. So there's definitely some work, but I could definitely, she's someone who could win Money in the Bank and become champion from that easily. I think she's a contender for that type of thing. But I don't think, like you said, I don't think we're anywhere close to that, especially going into WrestleMania season. So there is a way they got to figure it out. Maybe it is a tag team. I don't know who the hell you put with her.
I'm sure I'll go through the roster while you're talking for a very long time and try to figure it out, but it has crossed my mind that she might need a tag partner. She might. Because
we might have to look at the NXT roster because the main roster, I don't think there's anyone that I can see with her. That makes sense.
It's going to be tough. It's going to be real tough. All right, let's get hopeful. I'm sorry. Let's get you comeback. Excuse me.
You and your hope comebacks dyslexia lately.
Yeah.
It's okay.
I flip when I flop. So
my comeback is going to not Gold Standard, whose shirt I'm wearing. I could have worn the other one, but it is actually going to Bobby Lashley, which does eventually lead me into the Hurt Business. But I popped big, much like the crowd did. This is one of those few moments on Raw where the crowd went nuts. It's like they tried this thing of trying to make Lashley a heel, and the crowd was just like, no, we're going to cheer Bobby Lashley anyway. So they figured out, like, you know what? People want the Hurt Business. They can act like heels and like still be babyface and be whatever. Like we're gonna tease it. Obviously, he came out and he just kind of walked by Seth, but then he went after Theory because he hasn't had Theory and Lashley have to do their one-on-one thing. Probably all these guys are going to be in the Rumble together. They're probably Raw's top contenders because there's no world title on Raw, so the U.S. title is de facto the only male title there. These are the three guys who have been circulating around it for a reason. It was good to see Lashley back. Good to see that he still looks like a badass. Still over like Rover, but the big thing was we kind of hinted at off the top. him talking with MVP backstage, we find out that MVP is the reason he got reinstated, which means that they're mending fences here, and he dropped the hurt line and the business line. He said he also talked to Shelton and Cedric, who then were featured in the main event as part of the Gauntlet as a tag team. So that got me excited. No signs of Omos here, so I'm curious if like maybe he gets repackaged or sent somewhere else to do something else, or if they use him here like hashtag JC's hopes come true and have him just be another extension of the Hurt Business, because I think this is a fun faction. So we'll see where it goes, especially because I don't need to ever see MVP wrestle again, so he could be the fourth wrestler in the stable. But all this got me excited, so it was perfect for my comeback. I didn't realize Lashley has been gone a month. It's like crazy. It's like, holy crap, it has been a month, but he's a stud. The Hurt Business is awesome together. That got me excited. So Bobby Lashley, you get my comeback this week, good sir.
They really laid it on thick with that promo. So I mean, they're anticipating it. If I don't ever see a Bloodline versus Hurt Business thing, I think I'll hurt my brain. Like it just seems like there's too many logical things there, but whatever. It's
Judgment Day, Hurt Business, and Bloodline.
Yeah. Yeah, it has to happen at some point.
Like a triple threat chamber. That'd be dope. We
obviously
know that's not happening.
Sami Zayn interacting with Dom in the Rumble would be really funny. Like that to me is gonna be like that's up there for one of my hopes.
Dom with anyone in the Rumble is gonna be so good.
I mean, just the things you could come up with are just hysterical. I kind of think dark horse wise that Dom might actually end up like Jerry Lawlering it and hiding underneath the apron for the entire fucking thing. Just cause it'd be funny.
It's the amount of heat that kid gets just by existing. Like everything he does is just like there were so many things you can do within the Rumble to like put over baby faces just by having Dom exist. So it's exciting.
My comeback goes to somebody I didn't think I was going to give it to, but it hurt my feelings almost. Dolph Ziggler. I'm going to give it to he's here to show the world, yet he hasn't been on my television for a very long time. So, I mean, except for NXT, which if you haven't watched NXT, then he really wasn't in your world for a very long time. And then there's this backstage segment that like was a head scratcher for me, where it was like Ali comes out of nowhere. And it's like,
this was the callback I was referencing earlier, actually, where they said like, because he cost Ali the title like a month ago. And I was glad. I'm like, they called back to that.
Yeah. So it is odd to me. He's like, and I'm sorry for that, but it's not about you right now. And I'm like, we could be a really good tag team. And he's like, maybe so, but not right now. And I went, how many fucking times are you going to put Dolph Ziggler in a goddamn fucking tag team? Yeah, he'll make it work. Yeah, we'll probably talk about how great it is on this program. But this guy is so fucking good at his job. He's almost too good. And that's why he's saddled where he is. When I was watching this match with Solo, all I could think about was he is fucking working his ass off right now.
Always.
And it's just like he doesn't know any better. He just does what he does better than anybody else. And I'm not the biggest Dolph Ziggler guy in the world, but respect is there. Like you watch him and you go, he's just unlike anybody else I've ever seen in my life, just naturally gifted and effortless. And when I watch Solo go against him, I'm like, I could watch this all day. I could watch about a half an hour of this, and I don't like longer matches anymore. But it bothered me that Dolph Ziggler is going to be relegated to another fucking tag team. Another. And we haven't even really talked about this. Bobby Roode had surgery. He'll probably come back at some point, so then they'll get shoehorned into that again. Like,
I didn't hate that tag team, though. I actually
the Dirty Dogs.
The Dirty Dogs.
I just miss Glorious, honestly. I just think that's great. I mean, he was all.
If anyone could bring it back, it's Triple H. Maybe that's a Rumble hope right there.
Right? Yeah. It's hard to fathom in 2023 that Dolph Ziggler can't find something to do. Like, I don't know. It's hard. It's really, really hard. And I get it. He's probably the guy that has to work with all the new guys, and I understand that. But to me, and this isn't no slight to Mustafa Ali, because I think he's incredible too. He's probably Mustafa Ali might be one of the most smooth people in the ring I have ever seen. He's just smooth, and he's really, really talented. But I look at that and I go, he's not going to be able to help him. Like Dolph Ziggler can't help Ali be less Ali-like. It's just not happening. It's just not happening for me.
I think them feuding would be better for me than a tag team, and that we could be getting both. Who knows? But I will say this: it's like, because Dolph Ziggler is obviously someone who always looks like, man, he should be used more. But I will say this about him: if you look at the salaries for wrestler, He's one of the top paid guys in WWE because the company knows what they have in him. They know the tool belt that Dolph Ziggler possesses. So even at the times where they're sparingly using him or whatever, they know he is the ultimate. Like if you Google plug and play, it's Dolph Ziggler. We've seen it over the years. So it's at least good to know that, like, even if we feel like he's misused the majority of the time, they at least compensate him well for it, man, because it does. If you look at the list, it is surprising to see his name there. But I mean, he's been there forever. He's been doing it at a high level forever. And like you said, his match with Solo just showcased it's like, no matter what, if he hasn't been on TV for like a week, a month, freaking 6 months, he comes out and he still puts on an absolute banger every time and makes his opponent look better than they've ever looked. So
that's the hard part, is when you are so good at that, they don't need you all the time.
Well, exactly. They use you, and when they do use you, like, it's to make other people look great. It's like him and Ricochet, those type of guys, like, they're always going to kind of get put in those roles because they're great at making other people look amazing.
Paducah. I just can't do it. Can't fucking do it with him. All right, it's time for the big old finish.
We got a lot in Nestlemania.
Yes.
We have New Year's Evil, and we have another loaded Dynamite from the Con Man, Tony Khan.
So I have to ask, is New Year's Evil technically a prediction thing for us, or are we just saying it? Because I don't
think so. We only do it for premium live events, and this is not a premium live event.
This was a regular, not a Diesel live event. Got it.
Yeah, it's on Tuesday, so it cannot be. But we're gonna start with SmackDown because we have two major matches for SmackDown. We have Sami Zayn versus KO, which is a nice setup, and we assume KO will probably get the win, and something will happen with Roman there. But we also have a IC title match: Gunther versus Braun Strowman. So obviously, this is probably the biggest challenge to date for Gunther, but I would suspect he retains, and I wouldn't be surprised if Hit Row got themselves involved here after what Braun did last week. But either way, I think they're two mega matches that I'm excited for.
I think both have to have some type of chicanery. There has to be.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that Sami Zayn specifically, I see this being a DQ. I don't see it being KO wins cleanly. I think it's going to be a fucking schmoz where the fucking bloodline just beats the shit out of him. And then they're going to have a moment there where, all right, Sammy, here's your moment. Fucking end him. Fucking end him. And he hesitates. I mean, he does it, but he hesitates. And I think that's the crack we need to get to the next part, which is obviously KO and Sami Zayn eventually dealing with it. But I think having him have that hesitation, like I have to fucking end my friend's career here, and not just jumping on it like the rest of the bloodline, will be very telling. I think that's good storytelling, personally. I think that's what I'm looking forward to when I'm watching SmackDown. Now, Gunther, I mean, you can say Brock Lesnar comes out, distracts him, fucking makes him lose, but I don't think that we're not there. So yeah, I'm just gonna have a hard time when they and you know, they say that the Elimination Chamber will be the IC Championship. I look at that and I go, that's going to be tough, because by the time everybody hits the Elimination Chamber, they've all had a crack at Gunther.
Yeah, so but that's where I think he loses, because that's the spot where Brock returns and costs Gunther. Like, that's how you do it.
You do it in the middle of a fucking, like,
yeah, you have him break through the fucking cage. Like, how much we love seeing Braun and Brock destroy things. Well, they're both probably Braun will be in this match, and who knows, maybe he's the one that gets the win for it. But I think the Elimination Chamber is the perfect spot to cost Gunther, because first of all, there's 5 other dudes in the match. There's a ton of violence, and Brock can come in and do whatever he wants and cost him the title. So
I just don't think Brock Lesnar is excited to work with Gunther. Like, I think that gets him out of bed. I know the paycheck's nice, but
as we know with Brock, he's always hesitant to work with new people, because you never know, because he's had good experiences, had bad experiences. But I think the majority of the time, like, he was pleasantly surprised with Finn and Ricochet and some of these guys. So I think him and Gunther, I mean, because Brock always says, he's like, fucking hit me, you fucking pussy. Like, that's what he says to people. And we know Gunther will fucking hit him. So I think that, and it doesn't need a title, I don't think, either. So that's why I think that's the spot. So
I just don't think Gunther has been elevated to a point in which I can believe he could beat Brock Lesnar.
Well, that's what this will be for. Is him proving that he does belong. Sometimes you have to do it in the fire, you know, because who is Gunther believably going to have a feud with to build it up at this point? You know what I mean? Because like you said, he's running through everyone on SmackDown. He's about to run through Braun. So I think it's the next logical step. Who knows? Maybe they do Brock Lashley and they tease that at the Rumble, and that's the Mania match. But I still would love to see Brock Gunther, because it's something new for Brock, which we haven't had in a long time.
Okay, that's fine.
NXT New Year's Evil. Very top-heavy card, because as I'm about to say, we do have a match between Dempsey and Hank Walker on this card.
That was our excitement running through us.
Yeah. We also have the Nestlemania special of Indus Sher versus the Creed Brothers, which I will say they've been building this match for months.
I mean, the Creed brothers got to lose.
You would think so, and I am intrigued to see Indus Sure because the only time we really saw them as a team was when they were with Bivens. Like, I mean, this was like probably 2 or 3 years ago at this point. And they kind of came on and like beat people up, and they were just disappeared. So I am curious to see the development of these guys, and because we've obviously seen them both in the ring now, and like Sangas look decent. Like, I'm curious to see like now as a tag team, like if they're ready to the next level. And I think the Creed brothers are a good measuring stick. So I am intrigued by it, even though they're not two of my favorite teams. But we also have Dijak taking on D'Angelo at Nestlemania.
So I've never really been a Dijak guy. Like, it's not like he's like my boy or whatever, but I'm still having a hard sense of understanding his character. I think that's, and I mean, maybe I need more time on my screen to understand him.
I think so.
Like, but it's just like my brand of justice. And it's like, are you the fucking Batman? Like, what are you? Like, are you Big Boss? Like, what exactly are you? And I don't understand it. Like, and then there's Tony D, who kind of last week came off like a baby face. And it's bizarre to me. Like, obviously that's a great, he's doing great. Tony D is doing great. I think even Stacks, is still around?
Yeah, I think like two dimes is gone, or the
2 dimes, whatever. But like
4 nickels, 2 dimes.
They're whatever conversion rate. They're doing great. I like it. But then there's like the Wes Lee factor of like, what are we doing here? It's a weird thing.
I think either way, like this is a default number 1 contenders match,
right?
And I think that's why I think Dijak probably picks up the win here, because I think he needs it more. Because Tony right now, he's pretty bulletproof. They obviously clearly don't have much going for him. I still think like to really round him out and make him interesting again, need to get him that big family, because that was peak Tony. Like, that was great. Like a feud with Legato and then absorbing them was really good. And now that, like, obviously with only having the one guy, it's not the same. So I want more Don from Tony D, and I think maybe a loss here kind of helps that, but who knows?
What I would have loved to see here is eventually, maybe it will happen because someone listens to this program and then, you know, writes for NXT or something. I would love to see a match with Tony D and Dijak where, you know, if Dijak loses, he has to become part of the family.
Well, that's why when they first started doing this, I was like, I kind of don't mind Dijak as an enforcer for Tony. Like, but it seems like they kind of went away with that, and he's more of like his own solo guy. But yeah, no,
vigilante.
It was something that I think could have benefited both. But I am curious either way. I think there's a lot of possibilities here, and we can see how it play out. We also have a 20-woman battle royal to determine the number 1 contender for Roxanne's title.
Do you think they're gonna do it right now? They're gonna give it to Cora Jade?
No.
Like, I feel like Cora Jade's a long play here, so I don't
save that for WrestleMania weekend.
I feel like Zoe Stark is gonna win this thing and really piss me off.
Yeah, I think so too. I think she's and I know Guthrie isn't on Twitter right now, but I'm sure hopefully he's still listening. But Zoe Stark is a perfect first opponent to put Roxanne over. She really is. As much as I hate saying that, I'd love to see like a Fallon Henley or someone break out. But
you need a definitive heel. And as I was watching all the women in the crowd talk, I'm
Zoe
like, you're not Nikita Lyons. Nope. And I'm like, okay, like, I don't think Toxic Attraction is gonna do anything but tag teaming. It's just like, I mean, maybe it's one of the Toxic girls. I get, maybe that could happen.
Yeah, and I think they can do that more naturally. I think this is a good way to kind of prop Zoe up and kind of build like because I don't know, are they still doing an NXT event Royal Rumble weekend? I'm not sure, but if they are, I think Zoe Stark is the perfect first opponent for Roxanne because she'll make Roxanne look good. I
think the other thing that would intrigue me, and I'm not booking NXT, but this is the kind of stuff that I'd be intrigued by, would be Toxic Attraction in a triple threat match with Roxy, because I think that way we'd be like, oh.
Yeah, because they could treat it like a 2-on-1.
Yeah. Or are they going to turn on each other? You know, like, it's like, no, I want to avenge Mandy. No, I want to avenge Mandy. And it's
maybe you get your Hart Luger spot in there.
There you go. That would be something. I'll probably roll my eyes if that's the case, but
I'll roll my eyes no matter when they do it, anytime ever, because I hate it.
Okay, what else?
We have the main event. We have Braun Breaker defending against Grayson Waller. Will we have a new face of NXT after Tuesday?
My brain says no, but my heart says yes.
I'm the same way.
I mean, I assume it's Mello that dethrones, the big wolf or whatever the fuck he is, big dog, whatever the fuck they're going to try to call him. But Waller has impressed me to the point where I think it's his time. Like, I look at it and I go, the presentation he has, the way that people roll and physically groan, like when he comes out, like he's just great. He's so good at what he does. And not that Mello's just a different animal. You know, like he's just not even
Well,
comparable.
so this is my big thing because I feel like obviously when you get past WrestleMania, it's always call up time. Like Melo could be on the main roster tomorrow, and none of us would bat an eye because he's ready. So it's one of those things. It's like, do you want to give him the check mark of the NXT title before he goes to the roster? Maybe, but at the same time, he could be a guy that could be a surprise entrant in the Rumble and just be
Right.
up. You know what I mean? And then he's in a ladder match at WrestleMania. Maybe he wins the IC title or something. Who knows? But it's just like that's my thing with him, where it's like I could see them doing it with Grayson here. I don't know. It depends if they're ready for Braun or not, because I feel like they don't take that title off him until he's coming up, which granted, the Royal Rumble's right around the corner. So that could be the time and he could just be in the Rumble, have a great showing and be on the roster. Because again, he's another guy that could be on the main roster tomorrow and probably be ready just because of his star power. And the wrestling's getting there. So it's tough, but I think it's interesting. And I do think I want to see a Grayson NXT title run at some point, but I don't know if they're going to give it to us now. Like you said, heart, yes. Brain, no.
I do say this much though. When I watch Braun Breaker wrestle, he needs more time in NXT.
I don't disagree.
You can tell me, yes, he looks good on a poster. He's got the lineage and all that stuff. We can wait. We can wait another year. I think we can wait another year because honestly,
I don't know about a year because I think as long as he's in NXT, he has to have the title. I don't think he's a guy that lingers in NXT without a title. It doesn't make sense.
I don't know. When I watch him, I'm like, his footwork needs, his timing's a little off. Like, you know, he's starting from scratch. He needs more time to get, like, you can't, if you put him up now between Royal Rumble and WrestleMania, he's going to get lost in the shuffle. He's not going to matter. If it's night after Mania, that's fine. I'll deal with that. But I look at him and I think he would really benefit from more veterans coming down to help him than him going up. I just think you're going to put the kid at a disadvantage.
I don't disagree, but we've already seen that. And I think you're at the point now, whereas the more this run continues, the more of a chance you have people turning on him because they're just sick of it. So I think it's a tough spot. I still think after WrestleMania, like you said, is more optimal than now, but I find it hard to believe that he's not going to be in the Rumble because I feel like that's a good appetizer for it. So it's just whether he'll have the title or not. But Nestlemania, we have to get to Wednesday to an absolutely loaded AEW Dynamite. We have the payoff match between Jon Moxley and Adam Hangman Page.
I like this. I think
I'm excited.
This is one of we joke about not having good stories.
This is a pay-per-view level match.
This is a good match that should be this should either be the opener or the end. That's it. Now, if you put Saraya with her mystery partner, that's no longer her mystery partner, Tony Storm.
That's middle of the show. I think
middle of the show now.
This and the best of 7 are beginning or end.
I would think that you start off hot with the fucking ladder match. That's just me. You start off incredibly hot because people are going to be more in tuned at 8 o'clock to turn and look for shit. But later on, they're going to go to bed. This one, you look and you go, what the fuck is this? Boom, you got me. So Moxley, I think Moxley and you can, here's the thing. You could build up Moxley and Hangman with like throughout the night. You could have Hangman, you know, getting checked again, you know, having his impact test or having a doc look at him before he comes out, shit like that. Or like having Moxley cut a promo, shit like that. Like that, to me, this could be good. This could be really, really good.
I agree. I do also think that this is probably only number 2 in their trilogy. I think the trilogy will culminate at the next pay-per-view, whenever that is. But I do think Moxley gets another win here tonight because I think the story here is Hangman keeps coming up short, whether it's selling an injury again or whatever, or he's not fully whatever, or him like maybe getting too much out of his comfort zone and playing into Moxley's hand. This has very much like a vibe of like Moxley's going to be dominant until Hangman can finally climb over the Moxley mountain because that's been kind of like the one guy he hasn't been able to get past. So.
That's fair. Very fair.
We also have on this card, we have Hook and Jungle Boy taking on Lee Moriarty and the worst name in AEW, Big Bill.
Big Bill, Buffalo Bill. Fuck. If Hook suplexes Big Bill, I'm for it. If it doesn't happen, I'm not for it. Jungle Boy and Hook is something I didn't expect.
It's fun though, right?
It's all right.
Like, it's a fun little feud.
Yeah,
it's a fun little D-list feud.
I just look at it like, okay, we're in LA. They want to pull out all the stops they can possibly do. So I'm for it. And the thing is Hook has to win.
Oh yeah, right? Hook and Jungle Boy have to win. Yeah. Whoa. Maybe we get a Christian Luchasaurus return too. You know, never know.
Who knows?
But we also have on this card, we have Bryan Danielson versus the guy's name I'm not even going to try to say because it always sounds like I say take a shit up.
Yeah. Well, they want him to be a big star. So clearly this will have a lot of fucking back and forth. Can I just go on my soapbox for like 2 seconds? I know we got to get out of here. Okay. You know what really fucking bothers me is everybody sitting there being like, oh, AEW is doing great. And like, yeah, the storytelling to me is not great at all. I don't think
Some of it has gotten better though, I think.
Some of it has. Some of it absolutely has. But the one thing that people cannot sell me on, and I refuse to believe that you can sell me on this. Bryan Danielson versus MJF should be enough. That's it. But the fact that they're making him run through hoops is tough enough because they've already done that before. I get it. It's stupid, but whatever. But then they blow their load saying, oh, and if I win, I'm picking the stipulation. Instead of making us wait and wait and wait, they blew their load and they told us what it was. I don't have to watch the next 4 matches. It's a missed segment for me. It's a missed storyline. And on top of it, you're telling me that at fucking Revolution, we're going to have a 1-hour Iron Man match? I'm fucking out.
When there's already going to be 13 other matches on the card. Oh my God.
I can't. JC, you know me. I can't do it. I can't. And I won't. And I think this is the worst storytelling possible. I think the end game is fucking terrible. I'm out. I do not want to see Bryan Danielson doing a fucking 1-hour jerk-off session with Max at a fucking pay-per-view when I want to go to bed. I'm done. I'm fucking done with this feud. I'm done.
Yeah, I hated how they did it last week too, which is tough because I usually love everything MJF touches because it's usually gold or platinum or diamond, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, no, this ain't it. And it's like you said, it's like Bryan Danielson is the perfect first person to go over. He'll make him look great. But the way they did this feud and now the fact that it's fucking an Iron Man, it's like, I rolled my eyes hard. So yeah, no, I agree. And it sucks. And it's like, oh, it's funny because they've completely kind of like dropped the rankings for the most part. But in this scenario, they're like, oh, we have to make sure Bryan Danielson actually gets to ranking number 1. So he's got to run through Take a Shit and all these other guys. It's like, yeah.
To me, this is the worst storytelling I've seen so far.
It's
pretty bad.
It's not great, but I mean, they've had a lot of bad ones there. This is bad. We also have, like we said, the best of 7 Elite versus Death Triangle. I'm assuming you think the Elite are going to win in the Muerte match.
Be
Elite. That's what Nestle says. But then we have the Saraya and Tony Storm versus Britt Baker, DMD, and the AEW Women's Champion, Jamie Hayter, in a tag team match, playa.
The killer and the pillar.
Yep. I actually really like that line. It's still so good.
Yeah, she's on the mic. She's great. I just think in the ring she's the shits, but that's just me.
She's better than she used to be.
She's better than the rest of most of the roster. Let's put it that way. She's still head and shoulders ahead of the roster, so she's still above average. But she's not the superstar they portray her to be.
But her other things that she brings to the table are better than anyone else.
Quality,
so
yes.
She's still one of their top stars. And I mean, I don't like, here's the thing. I'm just so over Tony Storm. She's boring until she turns heel or does something interesting character wise. I don't give a fuck. Jamie Hayter's a better version of her, better champion than her, blah, blah, blah. But it's one of those things. Obviously the big question with this match is like, who doesn't give a fuck? Like it's probably would be what would happen potentially after the match if someone shows up or not. I don't know if anything like that's going to happen. So
do you think that the Sheeta Tony Storm thing is to get us off the scent of it?
No, I think I would love, I mean, I got excited for that because I'm like, I would love Sheeta to turn heel and beat the fuck out of both these women.
I mean, that's where it's headed. I get
that.
But
Saraya at the next pay-per-view makes a lot of sense to me.
But I think when I looked at it, I went, why wouldn't Mercedes Moné just be like there? I know she's probably not, and that's fine. But I can be Sheeta beating up Tony Storm before the fucking match. And she's got nobody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, they could do that.
Then Mercedes Moné comes in.
The only issue with Mercedes Moné being her tag team partner is she debuted as a heel and has come off of a heel, and Saraya is a big baby face right now. So just putting her here, like that's what, again, AEW doesn't always make sense. So they probably wouldn't care. But I don't know. I don't think it's going to happen. I have no inside information. I don't know if this is the spot. Maybe there's someone else who returns. I don't think Statlander's ready, but maybe I think this could be a spot where maybe something else happens that isn't Mercedes Moné.
Nah, whatever.
Either way, it's a tag team match. Who cares? We do have 2 matches for Rampage on Nestlemania. We thought we were done.
Fuck.
We have Kingston and Ortiz versus the House of Black.
Give me House of Black because I just don't care about Kingston and Ortiz as a team.
They're teasing Ortiz joining the House of Black, which I just don't care. But then we also have the match I'm actually more excited for, and that is TJ versus Ruby and Willow in a street fight. Did you see Tay Conti's promo where she's like, yeah, street fight is my natural habitat. Yeah.
I can't. I know you'll love it. You'll tell me it's great. That's fine. That's all I need.
I love TJ, so I think they're fun. And I love Anna Jay and Tay Conti. So
nonsense. Anything on Rampage is nonsense to me. So
It is, but I thought, I mean, here's the thing. Whenever they put Orange Cassidy in the main event, it's good because he's great and you get the interview with Mark where he steals his line and Mark gets mad. But besides that, Rampage is mostly trash. I will say that last week, Battle of the Belts was a lot of fun and Jade Cargill's best match by far ever against Sky Blue. Absolutely great match. So kudos to her. Continuing to improve.
Match of the year. There it is.
Well, maybe AEW Women's Match of the Year.
All right. Are you good? Are we good to go?
Yeah, I'm done.
All right, great. Well, thank you for listening to this Jobber Knocker. We'll be back next week with more Jobber Knockery.
Grayson Waller Effect champion?